Hi, welcome. This little short movie will go over the mechanics for 3100, Introduction to Management Information Systems, and it will go over what you need to know in order to keep up with the class. So let's quickly go over this. This is your Blackboard. Blackboard is something that I like a little bit in that it's a wonderful place to stage content. It's a terrible place to do communications. So if you ever try to contact me, don't do it through Blackboard. It will never get to me. I've had very good students send me a message that has waited on Blackboard for a month. I didn't know it was there. So that's not the way to do it. Getting in touch with me via email is probably the best way to do it. I will get your email Monday through Friday. I will probably do something with it if you email me on the weekend. I will not touch it if it's on Sunday. And I will try to get it back to you within a day if your email is very easy to respond to and you're giving me lots of yes/no questions. Let's take it from the top though. Blackboard's a wonderful place to do a class. There are a lot of learning modules here. These learning modules are going to be here, and you can depend on every week this module will be ready for you to go. Now, if you go ahead, guess what? They are always under construction. This class is always under iteration. So final exam, guess what? That's last year's final exam. We're not going to do that. We're going to do something different. It's very likely that I will shift things right before class, especially this term, because we are trying to make online versions of this class, and we're trying to make the Blackboard very, very helpful and useful. But right now, syllabus is your gold standard for what is happening in this class. I work hard to make our syllabus very contractual, so that you feel like what is happening on the syllabus is what's happening in the class. The syllabus has been combed over. I'm always up for listening to your typos if you feel like something needs to get clearer or there's some language left over from a prior term. Guess what? I'm just a person and I want to try to make it better, so let me know if you see something that needs to be discussed. On the other hand, this syllabus has power because if you read the syllabus, you will understand what's happening in the class. Let's look over the table of contents. This is interactive, so when you bring up this syllabus from Blackboard, you can actually use this table of contents as a set of links, so you can link to things. There's not a back button, but that's wonderful because this PDF will work like a little web page to move you back and forth to our content. I can probably boost that up a little bit. So, how many pages? 20 pages? Good Lord, that's a lot. That's a lot to read through. So I want to use this time to quickly kind of acquaint you to the content of the syllabus to feel like instead of reading a 20-page document, you have the basic overview in a few minutes. And then I recommend that when you have time to go and download this. Email is a big way to communicate with me. I will not accept any text from you at any time, and it's not because I don't want to hear from you. It's because it's not professional. You're interrupting somebody in the middle, and frankly, I have people in my family who have disabilities, and they get to text me. You do not. So I should probably remove that and say, don't you dare phone me or text me. But I think traditionally the faculty have some way of contacting. So let me just say that I'm not going to answer your texts. And I'm going to look for ways. If you email me, I'm going to jump on it. I'm going to try to get it back to you with a lot of preference because we want to try to keep our conversations within the boundary of the university. I had a fantastic student, I don't know how many years ago, and she was a young woman, and she had a cool name. I think had a fun name. I forget the name, what exactly was, or Shantae or something gorgeous. And guess what? Shantae texts me at 10 p.m. Saturday night and says, da-da-da-da. Now, it was back in the days when everyone, all of the iPads and phones in my house were all synchronized together. And so my wife yelled at me from the other end. She goes, "Hey, who's Shantae?" So I want to say that a lot of you like text, and I respect you, but my family gets to text me, and you do not. So most likely in the future, I'll just have to tear that out and say, sorry, email me and I will try my best to get back to you, within a few hours, or, it could be soon. I have my cell phone synchronized, so all of Cal Poly's email shows up right on my cell phone. So I invite you to use the email. You will get results. My office is building on 64. That's the business school building. It's on the 3rd floor. Just locate 3027. I'm going to be here religiously during those hours. If you let me know that you're going to be there, I will give you a time when I will be free. These days I don't take a schedule because virtually no one visits me. I never get visited during office hours. And largely it's because I put videos like this out there. And you guys are so smart. And it takes a lot of energy to move around. Let's face it, it takes energy to move across the quad. And you guys are so efficient. Usually if I make a video of it, guess what? You watch the video, and the more videos I make, the less office hour visits I get. So half the time I'm sitting in this office talking to no one, texting, spouse and family members. So that time is yours. That belongs to the people of California. Okay, so you're free to come and drop in. I think in the past, people used this period to go over questions in the class, and so that's really what it's there for. So let's get involved in this. So you can click these links. There are 2 sessions of this, and that will begin to impact us because I don't have office hour time. Once we leave, once 5:15 hits in the first section, I have to disappear and I have to begin the walk to building 1, which is a little ways away, but I want to get there a little bit ahead of time. And so I can't take any of your awesome questions after class. I need to hustle and move to the next locale, which begins 15 minutes later. And then when I'm done with that, I need to hustle to yet another location. So I'm not complaining, but I have to say that my office hours are better times for me to receive your questions. What I think I'm going to do, though, is if there is no one who's emailed me and reserved my office hours, you see that my office hours roughly end right before this class begins, right before section 5. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to show up at section 5 about a half an hour ahead of time and try to entice people to talk to me, see if people will dialogue, and always the alphas come up front and begin to talk, and always, the more you talk to your teacher, the more you will get out of your class. And one of the purposes of university is for you to get used to working with adults that have a particular background and get used to the way that they talk. You're going to be like a lot of us here. You're going to receive a master's. You're going to sit for a PhD. You're going to do this at some point in the future. So we're here to help you get used to that culture. And that's why you go to a school such as ours rather than an online school, right? Where, frankly, online could work, but this is how we understand how to move you from undergrad to graduate and corporate life. Class dates, we will figure out when the final exam is. The university provides a gigantic website, and I will need a very bright student to figure out when the exam is and tell me when it is. But if you're here at 3:30, that's a wonderful time to informally meet with me, even if you're in section 6. I will know you are in that class and you come in. My time is your time. But you realize that when I'm on campus, that's when you are the priority. When I'm off campus, you're not the priority. And my time it belongs to other people. So you'll need to understand that and prepare yourself so that you can be productive when we're here. So, all right, so this class is going to confirm why CIS students are receiving 10% more salary upon graduation than any other business discipline. Now, the second most financially rewarding business discipline behind CIS is TOM, Technology and Operations Management. Now, individual results may vary. There are TOM people who will receive gigantic salaries. There are accounting students who receive wonderful salaries, et cetera, et cetera. There are finance students who will receive King Kong salaries. But on average, the CIS people will receive more. And this class, I want to say, is going to help confirm why that is happening. It's a very recent phenomenon. It has to do with corporate organization. It has to do with the geography of productivity, with locating a business where we can do it most profitably. This is the required textbook. You need to have it. I imagine it's in the bookstore. Get it in the format that matters to you. Some of you are asking, can I get a prior edition? And I'd recommend to acquaint yourself with the 8th edition and understand that if you get the 5th edition or the 4th edition, well, it's not the same as the 8th, and you'd better be aware of the differences. I am familiar with the 8th ed. You're going to need to get the 8th ed, however way, shape, or form. I understand that textbooks are a hardship. I do not approve of textbooks being expensive. Right now, this class needs a textbook. We will need to work through that. It is your job to acquire the textbook and to use the textbook. So let's be very clear. You'll need to have a copy of Office. You're going to use it a tremendous amount. Access and Excel, you cannot use, for example, a Bento or a MySQL or another version of Access. You need to have Microsoft Office. These are located in what are called DreamSpark, which is a free version of all of this that is available just for you, that only you can download. So if you are a student from overseas, don't worry about bootlegging it. If you're an American student, don't bootleg it. Use your your Microsoft Student DreamSpark. And if there is an Alpha student who wants to send me that link, I will put it up on Blackboard. I don't currently use it. Access is running on all of our machines across the campus. So when I sit down at my desk in my office, I have a copy of Access right there. I record a lot of our tutorials right in my little office, and if you want to come in, we can work on Access together. Access is going to be something that you will like a lot. It's very friendly. Time has rewarded Access with great accolades. My opinion of Excel is that you can get online spreadsheets in many ways. This is Google Drive. I love their Sheets utility. I have many spreadsheets that I run right here. And so we'll talk about that. You're going to need access to a Drive account so that you can collaborate on spreadsheets. You can alternatively use your Microsoft Office 365 account, which comes with your campus email. Let's get back to Blackboard here. The university has arranged a series of digital services that include email. If you go into your email, that will connect you to your Microsoft Office 365 applications, which are going to be wonderful, and they include just about everything. I was using Drive for a very long time, so it tends to be the tool that I lean on. Microsoft is a little bit later evolving their online web app versions of their applications. They're as good, if not better, than Google's offerings. This just tends to be what I am accustomed to, so it's, that's what I'm going to lean on. Excel, naturally, you'll be seeing Excel used in class, but I'll say this, I believe that most spreadsheets offer the same features, the same productivity. If you can do it on Google Drive, you can do it on Excel. We'll accept both of those solutions. In my own work, I just want it to load the graphs. The graphing utility that's available in Google Spreadsheets is so good that I love to use the spark lines for quantitative finance. And so these are different performances of an algorithm. And I happen to find this very helpful as a graphing utility. So I'll say that I am agnostic. If you use Google Spreadsheets, you're fine. If you use Microsoft Excel, Applaud, you'll be just fine. So let me say that. Let me get that out of the way. That's very distracting. I'll get very involved in that, and I don't want to get too involved in that. So that's what you'll need to procure. You're going to need just a web browser. If you can technically get through this class without downloading any software, the only exception to that is Access, where if you have a Chromebook or a Mac, I'm using a Mac right now. There is no Access for Mac. You'll need to use a university computer. I think that if you dedicate a couple hours a week to computer lab or library, you'll get a copy of Access, and you'll be quite good. You'll be well equipped. Too bad that no one has an online equivalent to Access. They would be well suited. We love Access. PowerPoint, Word are, you can either download PowerPoint and Word, or you can use the Google Docs version, or you can use the Microsoft Online version. When I did this class last year, every student used the Office 365 version of PowerPoint, and they did a bang-up job. So I believe that students really like these cloud versions, or Google Slides is kind of the PowerPoint equivalent, and I believe that the work process is the same, so you can use them interchangeably. So in my opinion, a person can buy an $150 Chromebook and do as good a job in this class as if they had a $2,000 MacBook, and I like that. So lectures, my personal preference is that lectures will not happen with me saying anything. I am going to be monk-like in my silence. If I say nothing in the first 3 weeks, I will have achieved a personal goal, which is to develop a lot of video and media content for these classes. And that's a joke. I talk a lot. I'm a 20-year veteran in teaching, and I say a great deal no matter what. You cannot preclude me from over-lecturing. I'm sure I will do that. But my big goal is to deliver lots of video, and then for us to break into lots of teamwork and discussions that will involve lots of graphing and lots of database use. Now, attendance, if you're not here, we will find a way to drop you. You should be here religiously. Do not sleep through class. I doubt you will. Late assignments, we will need to figure out a late assignment, but basically you need to be religiously on time with due dates. I think what we're going to do is we're going to say either you get things to me on time, or there is a severe penalty for not being on time. So just understand that I really like to spend time with your work. You're going to be writing papers left and right in this class. Every week there's a piece of writing that you will produce with your team in a collaborative way, and I will have direct access to the way that you write. I will be scrutinizing the way that you develop ideas. You need to be an excellent writer, and you need to be quantitative. And if you are those two things, you will get very high grades in this class. But it means that you have to have your work done at a due date so that I can sit in a Starbucks, adequately caffeinate, and then scrutinize your work to the level it must be. And there will probably be 20 or more groups in this class. So you are not special. You have to be on deadlines. Do not send it to me in an email. Don't send it to me in a Blackboard. Follow the rules or you will get a 0. Pound sand if you don't like it. I had a group of students last term who did not do that. They got 0s. They complained to the dean. And guess what? That's fine by me. Complain all you want. But if you see a gigantic 0 in your gradebook, probably you need to just turn in that work. Does that make sense? I think I made an exception because of weakness in character, but it may not happen again. So be sure that you're turning stuff into the deadline. Now, grading, these are some other things that you've seen before. You're going to have 8 team experiences where you're going to be generating new knowledge. You won't be reiterating, regurgitating anything in the book. You'll be using the book as a tool. You will have 8 pieces of writing that will be due this term. It'll be 80% of your grade. Then you'll have a final paper where you will accumulate your writings in one place and you will polish it. So this is the easiest 20% you ever earned because you need to weekly accumulate good work that will eventually create a single paper that you can show to a member of your industry. So on with some details. Now, email, I just put this here because it needs to be said. Your email should not be an emotional rant. If you are misusing email, I will bring it to your dean. Does that make sense? Do not make the mistake of using electronic communication as a way to mistreat another person. The problem with email is that it's inherently stressful. You have to be more polite in email than you are in your everyday. If you are very rough with me personally, I could probably handle it on a personal basis. it doesn't really happen to me very much. But I find some people really like to use email as a way to unleash on other people, and it'll go straight to the dean. We won't have Cal Poly people misusing digital communication. This is not Instagram, and you will learn that in this place. So emails, hey, look, be polite and make it so that I can respond to your email. I made the mistake of writing, I think, a professor in graduate school, a very long email, and he never got back to me. And I was hurt initially, and now I realize that to be a professor means that you pretend to be very open to students, but in reality, you have to work very hard at your discipline outside of class. So, it's important to treat students well, but guess what? When you're finished with class, you need to hustle and get your code written and get your grants received, or in my case, raise money or trade effectively. So professors are not little babysitters. They appreciate the university because it provides them a certain degree of intellectual freedom. They prize that freedom, and so most likely, if you're speaking with a professor, you're speaking with somebody of a lot of gravity who needs to be treated nicely. And I find that there's a culture of kicking professors around, and guess what that leads to? That's going to lead to universities going online. It'll be one class that 500 people take digitally. If there's going to be a culture of teachers getting mistreated, your kids won't have university. So make sure that the university's never been more endangered. It's a total. It spends incredible amounts of taxpayer money that the state does not have. So you'd better treat the university nicely. And so email is a place to set an example. And besides, if you make relationships with teachers, they're going to help you like all their lives. So use your teachers as valuable resources. I know you will. You always do. So guess what? Blackboard, announcements, posting modules, Blackboard. Email, personal conversations, Office, that's how we talk. Don't use Blackboard to talk to the instructor. It won't get here. So let's go forward. Now, this is all very template. Laptops are very welcome. Tap your notes in class. Don't use a cell phone. Turn it off. You have other things to do. I have lots of rants about cell phones, but guess what? If you are texting during a class, you are selling yourself short. Your brain cannot multitask. That's not how brains work. Allow yourself to focus on what is happening here and silence your crazy relationships outside of class so that you allow yourself to learn. And if you focus, you will be more successful. There's a very well-established series of studies at MIT where they have looked at the productivity of students today versus the productivity of students 10 years ago. And frankly, the students of 10 years ago were better. The MIT people attribute the texting, the apps, the notifications, the distraction with students just not getting things. And so what I'm doing with these videos is, guess what? If you make a video about it, the students will pay attention. Videos are more attractive. People are not easy to pay attention to. That's just something that us teachers need to get used to. So, attendants, you can read this. Just be here. If you are not here, it is hard for me to figure out that you are not here. But once we do, the bricks, the wall will come down upon you. You will have teams this term. If you're making your team members do the work, they will be instructed to turn you in, and so that they will not do your work any shape or form. And we will find a way to distinguish their work from those who miss class. So be motivated to be here every time. And I respect you. I know you have commuting and work and family, but the Cal Poly does not like absences. Cal Poly wants you to be here. Okay, so let's kind of go through this. I'm sure a lot of this, don't cheat, etc. Don't copy paste. Guess what? Copy pasting is immediately detectable. Don't believe that you can ever get away with that. Teachers know that is that's happening, and that's exactly what we are looking for. So don't do the thing that teachers are looking for. Synthesize ideas, come up with your own conclusions, utilize facts that are elsewhere and that are established by trusted people, and then create a bibliography, and that's the way that you get credit. If you just simply put a list of references and you don't cite them using a citation, that to me is a warning sign for plagiarism, because if you don't cite directly without sources, you are not allowing the reader to trace the language and trace the source. So don't do a table of references. Cite everything, and we can go through that. So, but that's the way that you get around plagiarism, and then you get ready for graduate school. Now, I had some classmates who in graduate school, I think they were from other countries, and they may not have, they were new to graduate school, but they were thrown out because they had to get a ticket, an expensive plane ticket home, because they simply plagiarized, and that's murder here in academia. Stealing other people's language without crediting them is stealing other people's ideas and work. Well, that's what we do here, is we do ideas, and so you need to credit other people. Besides, you as an undergraduate need to be in the business of building your opinion based on strong facts that are already out there. You know that you don't have the time to do 20 years of research in a week. So a lot of the ideas that you are citing, they belong to others, and then you have the grounds and the ability to go beyond that idea and to prove it, to disprove it. But you need to make a dialogue with other scholars. And so plagiarism is it's a problem in many levels. So let's understand how to avoid that. We'll talk about how to avoid that. Okay, so let's move forward. So here's the grading route. So you're going to have a team, and your team is going to be based upon some industry affinity, and you all will care about an industry, and we will establish who your team members are today or the next class, and that team will become your little family for the next 16 weeks. And you will be a family because you all care about the same stuff, not because you hang out on campus or that you like to sit with each other, but because you have a common destiny. You all are headed in a similar direction, and if you all can work as a team to generate contacts among the industry, guess what? You're going to be real authentic friends, right? Not parentally requisitioned friends, who are assigned to you, but you will make authentic alliances and real friends with an industry, and that will keep you afloat in your career for decades. So you will have a team. You will focus on an industry. We want to know about what is affecting that industry, where that industry is experiencing pain. We want to design systems to overcome the pain. It will take months. By the time that you present your ideas to industry members, you will impress them, and you will make them your friends, and they will want to keep track of you. And this is an innovation. This is new this term. It's only happening here. I hope other classes are doing it, but we're doing it here. So every paper, and you may have 4 people in your team. You may have 5. You can't have 6. It's too many. 5 is the top limit. We will look at your industry knowledge, where we'll ask you to integrate 8 concepts from the textbook. That's why you need the text. You will have a bibliographic reference, not to the textbook, but to the idea in the chapter. So you need to use your textbook, and there will be 8 ideas that will excite you and that will seem relevant and useful to you as a person with likely entrance to some industry. Now, when I say industry, I want to be clear. Education is an industry. Dentists operate within an industry where you have professionals operating within a sphere of common conventions, ideas, maybe accreditations, maybe standards, maybe licensure. Anything with common behaviors is an industry. So bricklaying is an industry. Making pools is an industry. Auto parts is an industry. Selling flagpoles at the retail level is an industry. Investment banking is an industry. Education is an industry. Making cars is an industry, right? Etc. Making electronics is an industry. Shipping the electronics between Malaysia and California is an industry. Does that make sense? Mowing lawns is an industry. Does that make sense? And we can legislate, we can make laws pertinent to mowing lawns. We can create licensure. Right now, I don't believe you can be an accredited lawnmower. I imagine it's right up the pike because you need licensure to cut another person's hair. And I think you can receive a fine for not having a license to cut somebody's hair. It happens all the time. So an industry is any common economic venture or behavior that has common standards and norms globally, nationally, locally. And so we are asking you to look at 8 concepts in the chapter that pertain to your chosen industry. So when I visit with students, they're already aware of industries. There are certain industries that they follow on a day-to-day basis. You'd be surprised at how astute our students are about an industry. They may not know how the economy works in any granular way, but that's okay because they understand an industry very, very well. And let me say this. When I was a young person, when I was about your age, I led backpacking trips. And I led ice climbing trips, and I led rock climbing trips, and I led river rafting trips, and a lot of outdoor stuff. So I was a participant within the outdoor recreation industry. I knew all about the gear. I knew all about the other universities doing it. I knew all about climbing walls. I knew all about climbing gear, etc. So there's this sphere of knowledge that as a 21-year-old I knew I was a near expert at, and it would be easy for me to move forward into that industry. So you know a great deal. Some of you already within your major are already very familiar with the mechanisms of finance, human resources, general management. It happens all the time. So I'm very interested. So during this class, we will group you together with other people who care about that industry. This is your actual family on planet Earth. And by joining that industry, you now locate tens of thousands of other people who want to talk to you. Does that make sense? As adults, we pledge allegiance to industries. We are saved by industries. Does that make sense? So I want to talk more about that. And now, naturally, you have your skill set. You may like finance. You may be an equities person. You may like stocks. You may be a central bank observer. You may be a treasuries person. You may be a private equity person. You may like to take over companies, rehab them, flip companies, if you will. And so that passion, that natural, God-given ability, talent, is a way to float and stay alive within that industry. But first you need to choose the industry. So I want to put that forward. That's largely why we have the Polytechnic set of schools, is because corporations come here and other polytechnics like us first in order to gather their skilled workforce. They don't go to the top liberal arts colleges, though some do. Media, they do not do a lot of the big liberal arts. Manufacturing, logistics, federal government, banking, these well-established industries, they all come here. So you are interesting, and I want to deepen that, and I want to give you confidence because I know that you have that, and it's time for somebody to pay attention to you, listen to you, and say, wow, that's where you have lots of talent, and nobody is quite like you. But if you don't identify with industry, we can't have that conversation. I'm going to say, find something in the world, young person, that intrigues you and that makes you want to spend more time on that. And guess what? I say, there is a way I can help you. Does that make sense? And that is a conversation that academics are not having with young people, and therefore you have the massive student loan debacle that's happening right now. That's why you have the movement to alleviate student debt. Guess what? It's not going to happen. Sorry. You're going to pay this debt. And so you might as well come out with a nice job. Your job is not based on Craigslist. Your job is based on an industry. And it's based on how well you understand and sympathize, protect, promote that industry. Zip. You could be a B student, but you could love an industry, and that love in itself will push you forward. Everyone in that industry will want to know you. Does that make sense? So that's your gospel for today. So industry knowledge, integrate 8 concepts from the chapter vis-a-vis that industry. Industry skill will come from me. I will teach you these things. You will make a diagram almost every week. It will be interesting and fun. You will get fascinated with it, and you will have a diagram. You can write about the diagram. You will have also literacy and numeracy. Literacy is just your writing. All of you have adequate writing. It's about exercising it. Does that make sense? It's not about can you make a sentence. That is how 4th graders work, okay? It's all about can you organize ideas and move knowledge forward. Are you informing the reader? Are you serving the reader? Does that make sense? And I'm not saying speaking with grandma. Now, grandma might have been in an industry, etc., but I'm talking about somebody working within that industry. Now, if grandma takes an interest in your paper, you're doing something right. Does that make sense? You should show that paper to other people. Frankly, the paper is about informing an adult reader. Does that make sense? But you should not baby the reader. You should assume that this person has a certain degree of economic and industrial fluency. Some students believe that they need to explain the paper, and they really need to do a great deal of explanation of things, and they really don't. They can be more fluid. They can assume that I can follow to a certain extent, and I can't. So, literacy, numeracy is if you have a fact, that fact is statistical in nature. Your opinions are not relevant. The news is questionable at best. You need to find data. You need to put it into your Excel. You need to make a graph. If it's a graph, we're going to buy it. We're going to pay attention. If you borrow somebody else's graph, maybe not. You actually need to have possession of data. Your facts need to come from the aggregation, the sum, the count, the minimum, maximum, the average, mean, median of some group of data. And if that is your fact, then that fact is king, and we will build solutions around that fact. It's numeracy. Don't worry, we'll repeat this. Now, you need to follow the American Marketing Association, their guide for how papers look. So your papers are going to look, and you need to have citations. And this is the guide that Western Oregon, every major university has an AMA style guide. I found this one when I looked for it. This is quite adequate. I'm sure there is a marketing professor here who has as good a guide, but they need to make it more search optimized. So you need to have an AMA formatted paper, and therefore the AMA means that you can pass that paper to anybody, everybody, and then everybody inside of that industry will respect it, and they're obligated to respect it. Therefore, we create equality by following convention. Be strict about your convention, and people will be strict about respecting you. If you take creative license, no one is obligated to respect you. Convention is how we get through. Now, if you are speaking using conventions, you will get vastly farther than by taking creative license of what we have established in our industry. AMA is a perfect way to write about it. Now, some people say, oh, well, do we do American Psychological Association? My thoughts are not bad, but do the AMA. Don't do APA, do AMA, because we are in a business school. AMA has done a great job at organizing. But let me put it this way. If you were to publish your paper in a journal of applied logistical sciences. If your group deals with trucking, something that we do a lot of here in SoCal, if you were to write a paper about trucking and distribution, something precious to us, and if you write a paper and if you were to publish that paper in an industry journal about logistics and logistic sciences, guess what? That journal would have their own format for how papers about logistics should look, and it will resemble the AMA and it will resemble the APA. The APA is perhaps the best known standard. The people at the APA do a great job at clarifying how to write a paper for psychology journal submission. Psychology is a gigantic discipline. It's growing a great deal, so they've done a good job standardizing. But if you were to publish that paper within an industry journal, it will have a format. And guess what? If you say, hey, Mr. Bunn, our group is all about the recording industry, and there happens to be a trade group, the RIAA, and they have annual publications, and they accept papers about the recording industry, and people in academics, they submit white papers, and they have a certain format, and can we use the RIA format? I would say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, and I will respect that a great deal. Because guess what? If you did a great job by the end of the term, you could submit that to that journal and get even more friends. And guess who determines your fortune in life? Your friends, people who know you. It's not a joke. And the people you know are based upon your industry. Like if you know your parents' friends, your parents are in industries. And so your parents can give you foray into industries. Does that make sense? That's important. You'll hear that only in this class. And so if you do all these things religiously, you'll get an A. If you do 85%, you'll get a B, etc. Now, when we get done with my one-way video lectures, then we may do a debate. I may visit with you where you do a presentation. I may give you a little chance to discuss a topic. I say, here, discuss this amongst your group, and then you'll find yourself talking with your industry family here. Or we may stage a free-for-all, Harvard Law School style, class discussion where all the alpha kids will talk. I find that we are moving away from this. That's the way I used to do things. We may not do it in the future. So, beginning on page 11, you will see what to do on a week-by-week basis. These topics map directly to the chapters in your book. So let's go through the modules. There are 8. Your final exam pulls them all together, and you will need to have acquired industry feedback on your ideas at some stage in your product. It's a very modest requirement. You can conquer it soon after you develop an idea. Here's the schedule. So here is when we begin, and here's our weekly meeting times, and here's the module. And you'll find that we have module teaching on the first week of the module, and the second week is left open so that we can do more constructivist, more project-based learning, where I'm going to say, hey, have your team downloaded this table of data from the U.S. Census? Do that, put it into a chart, and guess what? It takes 2 minutes to make a graph in Excel. Probably you all have done this. Or somebody who's done this, or you can look it up on Google or YouTube to do it, or I can show you quickly. It's easy. And so there will be a lot of quantitative fact-based work these days. And then after this day, you'll turn in your paper beginning of the week, no lates, beginning of class, and there will be a gigantic stack of papers on my desk before the next module begins. And so we'll clarify that. You have spring break this week. So we hope to get done with the module and leave you on your holiday. There will be nothing due over the holiday. It would be a pure holiday. We're going to hustle you through 6 and 7. By then you will have understand how to do this work. You'll be fine. Now, what interests me and where I spend time outside of class, especially during the winter break, where the university gives us a break and I find myself writing in Starbucks for about 2 hours a day, I came up with a philosophy of how we teach this class, the pedagogy. And it's why we're doing things the way we're doing them. What I hope to learn as a teacher We teach in a way where we research our outcomes and we figure out why students are doing what they're doing. We try to stay, I don't want to say a step ahead of you guys, but guess what? Every 4 or 5 years, the culture of young people changes so that they are expecting the delivery in certain ways. I think it has a lot to do with their media diet and the way that they work as a culture, the way that they work as people. And to me, I've learned to be interested. Instead of force you all to come to me, I'm going to come to you. I'm going to figure out how you all work. So I'm up for the discussion. I want to know what constitutes an active learning environment. What works? Does video surpass traditional model? You can read these. And it has to do also with how do you make effective educational media, which I am now trying to learn. We'll have quantitative measures that I am looking at, which are, did the students engage the textbook? Did the group papers show improvement? Other questions here, which I am watching in the background, and that these explain why we are doing things the way we are doing them. And it would give you a lot of intellectual growth by reading this. These are questions that I'm asking of my class as we go. For example, if you're currently employed in an industry, did you find the project engaging? Our evening students are real deal adults. They have real jobs and they have real industry involvement. Do they find it engaging? Did that help them? I find that in many cases when we do these kind of projects, that in certain class sizes, up to 30% of students receive job-related promotions. Now, Cal Poly is interesting because we have students at many different ladders of employment. Some of them are very established. Some of them are not established. Some of them are entirely students. Some of them are barely hanging on to their studies because they're so employed. But frequently when we have people who are already in an industry, they have the ability to become promoted based upon work they do in my classes. Okay, so I'm interested in how do I magnify that? Well, we're going to magnify it by getting groups of people who care about an industry. That's never been done in my class before, so I'm studying how that works. It may be too hard. I doubt it. I think you all will destroy that task and you'll be extra good because it will be personal. You'll say, Mr. Bund, I have an investment in the aftermarket auto parts industry. I sell auto parts. I build my car custom. I have one of those little RC Racer Hondas that race around town with the gigantic airfoil, and I know that industry. And I would say, well, that's got to be, what is that, a $30 billion? Is it a $100 billion industry? The parts that people put on their cars? Good Lord. What an interesting life you're going to have if you can find a way to get into what you love, get into what you understand. God has given you that, and how do we magnify that? We're going to find out. And so we'll talk about the films, and then I think we have other rubrics. These are the rubrics that I use. Where do I need to make my films differently? This is the way you need to read this, which is about how does your teams work? Do your teams work effectively? A tool that we use here is Github. Github is the de facto standard for team software development. And I think when it comes to any brand of intellectual property, that GitHub is a superior experience. What it has to do, you make an account here. And what you do is you actually upload files. And then these files become synchronized across all your team members' computers because they use a piece of software called GitHub, where they clone or they download and they open it up in the GitHub desktop. We'll show you how to do this as your team gets more experienced, and because they're able to synchronize all the files, they can get everybody involved building intellectual property as a group, irrespective of geography. So if you're 2 miles away, don't have to leave your house. If you're across campus, don't have to leave your house. You can zip files over to each other, and I'm actually going to follow your GitHub, and you will submit your paper. One version, a digital version, will be on GitHub, and another version will be printed for me to ooh and ah over your work. I can't wait. I want 20 pounds of paper to haul around campus. And I really look forward to it. But GitHub is a big part of your team work. This is what I developed for another one of my classes. Then you're going to have Google Drive, where the first time you get a team together, you should be sharing documents. And let's do this one that we looked at earlier. I pore over this. Over break I did a lot of work on this. It correlates what are called buy walls and sell walls, and the capitalization of what are called buy walls and sell walls to the price result, price delta within markets. It basically predicts price change based on how much is for sale versus how much are for buying. And we might get into it, we might not. But let's say I wanted to collaborate with others. I'm actually going to say let's open up a comment. So I say badap, and I'm going to insert a comment, and that comment is by me. So if you had invited somebody else to this document, I said, hey, I'm building up this cool spreadsheet. Would you like to try that out? And then that person begins to share it. They can see this document, and I can make a comment here which could save the day. I say, well, what about this? Submit comment. And so other people will see a stream of comments related to their work. And once it's finished, you should be circulating. If you develop something here, you could finish a paper on Google Drive. And you could meet for the first time during my class, where you will have time to visit with each other. And hopefully you will send it around to each other. And if you want to look at it on your phone ahead of time, if you're waiting somewhere or you're walking across campus and reading your phone at the same time, hey, you can be effective that way. So there's going to be a strong team rubric where you're going to have GitHub, Google Drive. You're going to use GitHub Pages to publish an electronic portfolio of your results. It's very easy to make once you have a GitHub repository. You use Blackboard to get my content, the link to my videos. Don't try to communicate using Blackboard. With me, you can try to communicate using your classmates. That could work, but it needs to go to email for Blackboard to work. You're going to have Cal Poly email, and then I recommend that you use an app messaging framework. I use Google Messages because it synchronizes between my my Android and my Chrome browser. That might be a good tool for you. I understand if I imagine it's available for Mac as well. That could be effective if a lot of your interactions are here in the browser. From what I understand, Messages for Mac is not available for browser. I wish it was. Maybe there's some other app that you want to use. I like this a great deal. It pulls together my various contacts so I can look at it here in my browser, which I will not do right now. So I will always ask the question, are groups sharing work? And you'll have what's called a delegation charter, where every week you will say, okay, here's the work that we're going to do, and here's the pieces of it that I'm going to snap off and give to everybody else. And we're going to write the charter of what everybody is going to do ahead of time in class. It operates as a chart. It operates as a contract. And as people deliver the work, they will fulfill that charter, and if they don't deliver the work, then we'll know who did what ahead of time. And I'll ask you, hey, do you have a delegation charter? I understand this teammate isn't present. It always happens. Or this person hasn't contributed. Okay, what is your delegation charter? And so when I look at the finished product and I see that there's a big hole in the paper, I'll know who belongs to that hole, who is supposed to deliver that. If you're blaming people afterward, but you didn't do a delegation charter, I won't listen to it because you're not operating effectively as a team. Make that charter, and if somebody needs to leave, I will make sure that they are moved along. There can be other teams that are formed based on people who have different schedules, and maybe that's the way it has to work. But you need that delegation charter in order to enforce group delegations, what people are responsible for, and whether or not you did or did not do stuff. If we do discussions, this is how we want to do discussions. If you do GitHub, this is how we do GitHub. So there's always a rubric for the things that I'm asking you to do, and that, my friends, is the syllabus. So I hope this has been informative, and I wish you all the success in the world in this class. And for those of you who are overseas students here, I really admire you. Working across language barriers is not trivial, and I sincerely hope that you can watch this video a couple times. If you have any questions, and then because it's going to be up on YouTube, you can actually send a link to some moment of the video that doesn't make sense, and I will happily explain. I totally understand the hardship of moving between two languages. I respect it, and I want to make your time here productive, helpful. But I will say this: I move fast, and I use the video to move fast. And my English is very standard, conventional, academic, industrial English. So I really understand if it was not the same English that you had in your home country, because everybody speaks another language there, and English is a second language. So they may not go rat-a-tat like me. But guess what? I'm not going to hold back, because you came here to understand how we communicate. You have reverence for our culture, so I want to give that right back by saying, welcome. We want you to be a big success. Here's what I meant. Here's what you should do. Boom, done. So I welcome that. All right, that will be all. Thank you.